Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Today, I'm going to go over when two narcissists walk into a bar. And what I mean is, Sadia Khan went on Nick Cannon's show. Now, Nick Cannon, for those who don't know, he is a diagnosed narcissist. So I'm not even saying that tongue-in-cheek with him. As far as Sadia Khan is concerned, she has admitted to being a narcissist. And if she didn't do that, I wouldn't say this in the title, but since she did, I absolutely will. And she throws some gems in there with her usual victim blaming. But again, I don't necessarily always disagree with everything she says. She kind of pulls some things that I think are accurate, twists and distorts them, and kind of says them brutally. But we'll see. We're going to see how it goes here. Rhodes, what's shaking? Today, we're going to go over Nick Cannon and Sadia. It's going to be a wild day on the show. All right, but let's see. There we are.
Safe space in a brave place, counterculture. And today we are with relationship psychologist Sadia Khan and her 3M.
Relationship psychologist. I can't believe, first of all, before I even begin with this, I can't believe she's still getting invited on shows, for one. And to an extent, maybe I'm contributing to it by even breaking down this video. I acknowledge that. But anyone who invites her really on the show, unless they're going to debate her, they are enabling her deceit of other people. And Sadia here, you're going to see her. She is smitten because Nick Cannon, more high status than her. And what kinds of people do narcissistic people want to be around? Other high status people. And it's just, there's nothing more obnoxious than seeing a narcissist get a steady supply, a steady stream of narcissistic supply. It's just hideous. And you're going to see what I'm talking about in a minute.
The method. First one, master yourself. Let's get it.
Once again, in a safe space and a brave place, it's an honor, privilege, and a pleasure to be counseled, not canceled, and counseled by an expert today in the field of psychotherapy.
And to repeat, Nick Cannon is a diagnosed narcissist for real.
In men's development specifically, we have a relationship psychologist who has a master's in psychology and has developed an amazing,
I'm not even sure she has a master's in psychology,
method, the 3M method, on how to help men like me and you, and internationally known, world respected, the one and only Sadia Khan. Thank you for joining us.
The pleasure's all mine. I'm super honored to be here. I'm still a bit starstruck, if I'm honest.
Really?
I'm very grateful.
Starstruck. Why? Because narcissists love status. They love being around other high status people. It confirms to them their superiority, and it gives them a sense of, oh, I'm special because here I am. I've been invited on Nick Cannon's show.
Grateful. Yeah.
Likewise.
No, I'm very grateful. I still have like pinch me moments when the fact that you even know who I am. I'm like, how does he know who I am?
Well, let's start
So
right there.
grateful.
I mean, your method, as well as just a lot of your podcasts and conversations, specifically in the space of relationships and dealing with men, are everywhere. I mean, I see it all the time, and obviously here at Counsel Culture, we discuss very similar topics, but you have such a unique perspective, and I feel like you are doing great work. I mean, literally thousands of hours of sessions with specifically men, right?
Yeah, I do work mainly with men, and that wasn't my intention at all. But as I started doing my work, I realized that all relationship problems are really problems with men. If you have a problem in your relationship, it's entirely the man's job. It's entirely the man's fault. And
that's how society sees it, right?
So, yeah, but they see it in the wrong way. They see it as a man's fault because he's not loving enough. He's not kind enough. He's not, when really it's simply he's not masculine enough. And it's really nothing to do with communication. It's nothing to do with like love languages and attachment.
And Stephen, with all this, she's just speaking in generalizations. Is it sometimes the fact that men aren't masculine enough? Absolutely. Absolutely, that's sometimes the case. Other times, is it a communication issue? Yes, sometimes it is a communication issue. Other times, it might be someone's attachment style, whether they're an avoidant attachment or fearful avoidant or feel an insecure attachment in some way. So you can't speak in these black and white generalities like this.
So it's actually very limited to do with that. When a man is simply masculine, he'll have very limited relationship problems because all he would do is select better and behave better.
Wow.
And once you select better and behave better, it's very difficult for you to have relationship issues.
That is so simple.
So
It's like,
simple.
but I think that the comments are probably already going crazy because.
But is it really that simple? I think that's an oversimplification of what's going on. Can it sometimes be helpful? Sure. But again, it really just depends on what the situation is.
I think there would be a lot of people that would disagree, especially because when we talk masculinity, they often put the word toxic in front of it. And masculinity has almost taken this beating of like, we no longer want a man to be a man, or what is masculinity? And we've almost had to hide it, especially because in work like this, where we're attempting to get in touch with our feminine side, and we're attempting to be more vulnerable and feel and express ourselves, that we're never working on the masculine. Like I've never really heard someone like, "Oh, you got to work on your masculine energy." Because I mean,
and you know what? That's actually a fair point from Nick there, actually, because when I see people trying to help men, they do seem to focus almost exclusively on you need to be more open, you need to be more vulnerable, share your emotions, share your feelings. That's really most of what I see from the mental health space and the therapy space involving men. But there is certainly room for being more masculine, in my opinion. And unfortunately, I think masculinity has turned into almost a dirty word because people will then really nitpick your definitions. Like, what's your definition of masculinity? Well, and to me, what I consider masculine is someone who has their purpose and mission first, someone that can be emotionally centered and is not going to be extremely reactive and emotional about things. He's going to provide masculine containment, positive masculine containment for the people around him. That's when you treat the people around you as if they are a part of you. You can't hurt them without also hurting yourself. Taking personal responsibility for every area of your life, taking extreme ownership of your life, and living that way, living that and moving forward and trying to be the best version of yourself, being assertive, having radical self-respect. That's what I consider being part of masculinity. Now, how often is it told that men need to do those things? I mean, when it comes to exclusively men, I hear way more of this, to be more vulnerable, share, open up. And that's an element of it to me. But at the same time, I've always gotten a little annoyed when that's the only focus. I feel like there's something cringe about when people tell you, "Oh, be more open, be more vulnerable." It's like a man who already is that way, they're just going to be that way. They don't need to be told to be that way. I think about Jimmy Valvano's speech in the 1993 ESPY Awards. He was a very masculine man, but he was also an emotional man. He showed his emotions. He didn't stuff them. And in that speech, he was dying because he had cancer. And he died not that long after that speech. Anyone who hasn't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. It's on YouTube here. But he displays masculinity. He displays self-awareness. He displays humor. He displays vulnerability. And you don't need to make a thing out of it. It's just like he just is. Like he did all of those things. He didn't have to be told, "Oh, make sure you're vulnerable, Jimmy V." It's like, no. Like when you are that way, you don't need to like focus on it. You don't need to bring attention to it. "Oh, I'm being vulnerable. Look at me. I'm crying." It's like, no, just be it. Because just like Tywin Lannister said to Joffrey Lannister, anyone who has to say, "I am the king," is no true king. So meaning, if you are something, you don't need to announce it. You're just going to be it.
You know, like I said, I was, I've been diagnosed with NPD and all types. I'm arrogant. I'm a narcissist. I'm all of these things. But I usually feel like, I'm just confident. I'm very content with who I am. I love my life. I love my decisions. The mistakes I made, I own it. I take accountability. But I like who I am, and I like being the dominant figure that I can
And
be.
is masculinity being labeled as narcissism in this day and age, or do you think that your diagnosis was it justified, or is it just aspects of masculinity now being diagnosed as narcissism?
I have a huge problem with labels in general. I understand it's a spectrum. I didn't just get the label just based off of like, hey, I think you're a narcissist. Like every woman has probably called me a narcissist, and I think a lot of it is probably based off of my.
And to speak of the spectrum there too, Dr. Salerno and I have gone over that. I do believe there is a spectrum of narcissism with less severe versions, moderate versions, and severe versions.
My choices as a father and the decisions I made, that it easily gets like, oh, that's narcissistic behavior. He's just having all of these kids because he wants to create a legacy and a tribe and all of that. But I think when I actually did the testing, and it was days of testing, like 3-hour sessions, and they're different tests. Like some you sit across from someone and they interview you and they ask you all of these questions. Then there's like the survey questionnaire that you take at a facility, and I was just trying to, that's the thing. You're a psychologist, so like they pose the questions in a certain way to where if you're not really paying attention, it's almost like train of consciousness, or even like they're trying to tap into your subconscious opposed to like the question actually, are you getting it right or wrong? So I did that, and it took about to get the results back almost probably a couple of months. And then when it came back, I didn't think I was like, oh no, there's no way. And they were like, no, you're like off the spectrum. And I was like, what
no, because for those who don't know, Nick Cannon, I think he has tons of kids from tons of different baby moms, and he talks about how he can't be monogamous. So we'll get into that later too.
Found out it was the things that I passed or didn't have any issues with was lack of empathy and rage.
Okay.
But when it was like, obviously like my abandonment issues and always fleeing, like if there's conflict, I don't deal with it. I just go the other way. Like I'll act like it just didn't happen.
Avoidant and the ostrich routine.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like that's definitely, it can be related to narcissistic behavior, self-worth, self-importance. Clearly, I'm off the spectrum when it comes to that, because I really do love myself and I really do value what I feel like I bring to the world and my purpose. So I never ran away from that. And then I think it is just like a level of confidence, because I believe the way the spectrum worked, or if I could recall, it started like the center of the spectrum is like confident.
Yeah.
And it's like we all want to get to that space. And then confidence turns like overly confident. Then I believe it's arrogant. Then I believe it's one more. And then it's narcissist.
But do you think anybody in the
So what it is when someone has a grandiose sense of self and feelings of superiority, and they think they're special and superior to other people, that's when you go into narcissism land. Now, on the other side of it, I've been reading a book right now by Dr. Keith Campbell called The New Science on Narcissism. He talks about the vulnerable narcissist stuff. And as I talked about with Dr. Salerno, they think that could be more similar to borderline, honestly. But in the book, he says the vulnerable narcissists, they're more likely to try to protect themselves from criticism and protect themselves from unpleasant feelings. I'm not sure how I feel about that, honestly, but I'm going to talk to him about that on Monday.
Industry would be relatively narcissistic. Aren't we dealing with narcissistic?
So I had a doctor who is one of my doctors, who's a psychiatrist who sat there. You may have heard of him before, Dr. Amen.
He's amazing.
So it's funny because I've done the brain scans and all that stuff, and he was like, "Yo, you're just the first one to actually own it and speak out about it." He's like, your entire industry is full of narcissists.
I just don't think it's possible not to be narcissistic. Even sometimes when I go to a concert and I see like maybe Kanye's on stage and thousands of people are screaming his name.
Yeah.
How would you not be narcissistic? Who would?
So, and this is a misunderstanding really, because you can't become narcissist later. You either have that inherent genetic trait of it, and then the environmental component makes it worse. What you can say is narcissistic, and she did say the word narcissistic, and I think that's also what social media can do too. If you are being fed all this attention and admiration, I think it can make you behave more narcissistically. But that's not being a full-blown narcissist. Kanye, he may also be a full-blown narcissist, in my opinion, although he's been diagnosed, I think, as bipolar, and he might be diagnosed as autistic. I don't even know. But a lot of the time, bipolar disorder can be misdiagnosed. And because it's really narcissism. Narcissists will get misdiagnosed as bipolar. And that's something Dr. Simon and I have went over as well. But what she's going on to say here, it's no, I mean, some people can help it. Some people try to be humble and try to have humility.
Be narcissistic if all of these people are like in a trance over you.
Or even when you think about athletes and sports, like if you're attempting to be the best, like you can't tell me Michael Jordan is not a narcissist.
Yeah, and
like,
the fact that
you have
See, but like they're misunderstanding what the word even means. Like you can still think, you can acknowledge that you're great at something, and that can make Michael Jordan be like act narcissistically, but that's not the same as being a full-blown narcissist. But is Michael Jordan a full-blown narcissist? I really don't know enough about him to say behind the scenes. I really don't know. I've heard he can be a jerk. I've heard he's had a problem with alcohol and gambling, but that doesn't really mean he's a narcissist. I just don't know enough to say.
to be.
But isn't it rightly so? If you can make other people just like as athletes, you can ruin somebody's day or make them elated the whole day. So why wouldn't you develop it? Isn't it?
So what is that even she's describing? She's describing someone that if they feel superior, they have the power to ruin someone's day and then make someone's day. And so to a narcissist, they love that because that makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel superior. And it shows, oh, I can control how other people feel. I can make them feel great and I can make them feel terrible. Narcissists love that. Because as I always say, everything a narcissist does is about power, control, managing their image, narcissistic supply, and avoiding accountability. Sadia and Nick here, they do a great job at demonstrating those things.
Actual consequence of the work.
And that's the thing, like by me stepping out and embracing it, it's almost like I was attempting to take like the demonization away from it, because it's like it's another diagnosis, it's another syndrome like that. You know, we know a lot of people deal with multiple things, and if you're attempting to work on it and better yourself. So I was like, I'll own it if this is what it is. Yeah, I'll be that.
And wouldn't everybody be a narcissist if they had the same superpower that you have to achieve what you do? I'm not saying it's justified, but wouldn't any human being, if they can do that?
And I'll go one step further in the idea.
Sadia Khan's telling on herself there. That's her projecting, oh, that's how I would be. If I was that, this is what I would be. And that's how she's proven that anyway. So that her accusation is a confession in that way. She is projecting what she thinks.
Of like, shouldn't we all love ourselves to a level to where we believe that?
Well, especially if they say you still have empathy and you don't have rage. Why is it a negative?
And that's another interesting thing to note. If they said he has empathy, it doesn't have a lack of empathy. I don't know about that one, Jack. I mean, if you're going to be like cheating and doing all of these things, I mean, how much empathy do you truly have in that case if you're hurting the people around you? I don't know. But there is something to say that I would think, and I talked about this with Christian the other day. We asked, do narcissists have empathy? And a lot of people also think now there's a spectrum of empathy. A lot of people don't want to believe that. They just say no empathy across the board. But the way I see it is, a less severe narcissist, they might have a little, because I believe in the spectrum. Moderate has less, severe, least of all. That's how I would see it. And even with narcissism and love, that's not even necessarily the right way to put it, because I don't know if I would call it loving themselves, like feeling superior and grandiose and arrogant. Is that truly self-love? That's debatable.
That's what that's where, you know, there's even, I was like, well, is there an aspect of, you know, positive narcissism? And even when we're like training our children and things of that nature, it's like you want your, like, even in this culture, like I've always been a global advocate for anti-bullying. And it's like, it's not about beating up the bully. It's about having the level of confidence that we want to instill in our kids, that you know how to deal with all scenarios. And if you build up your confidence, the way the bully is usually the one that has the lack of empathy and the rage, because he actually is insecure in a lot
Yeah.
of spaces. So when we get into that conversation specifically about like children, I was like, I think it's healthy to teach your
Yeah.
children to be confident and love yourself. And if you get back to the space of like even where the term narcissist comes from, and the tale is like, it was a person who just loved himself so much that he loved his reflection.
Yeah, that's the Greek.
You know,
Yeah,
like-
and I think it's become a term that women particularly use every time they've been heartbroken. But you're not a victim; you're a volunteer when it comes to
Not a victim, you're a volunteer. What could she possibly say about this?
narcissistic behavior. The narcissist is like, I'm going to do me. If you want to do you, you can do you, but I'm going to do me. It's your job to either do you or not do you. Now, you can't then claim to be victim when they pretty much show you everything that they're about to do
From
and
the
going to do.
gate.
And especially in your case, it's like there's been relationships, they know what they're getting. So anyone that then enters a relationship with you and then says, oh, Nick was such a narcissist, it's like, then newsflash,
you knew coming in.
So the victim
Look at this. So not everyone is a celebrity, though. Like some people that are celebrities, they do have a track record. Oh yeah, you can see their relationship patterns, etc. But a lot of narcissists are not celebrities. So there is not really a track record that you know of a lot of times. And this whole argument by Sadia, it just misunderstands what's going on a lot of times. Like a lot of these narcissists can be really tricky and their masks can be pretty good in the beginning. And only if you know exactly what to look for and you know what some of those narcissistic behaviors are and their tactics, then you'll be able to see it. But a lot of times people, when they're not aware of it, they don't know what to look for and they can easily be sucked into this kind of thing. And then it becomes the frog in the boiling pot analogy of abuse. Before you know it, the boiling pot is boiling and you're toasted, right? And so what Sadia says here, I mean, there's something to say to somebody down the line, some of this stuff, but to say it instantly to somebody, I don't believe. But I do believe down the line, anyone can take a look at their side of the street because that is where our power is. I just don't necessarily like how they say it here.
of narcissists, I think they need a wake-up call. They just like it. It gives them a temporary relief to believe that they're not involved in this dynamic. But when you accept narcissism, you also have a desire to be a victim. There's something in you that likes to be a victim, and that's more dangerous than the actual narcissist.
Not always, though, Sadia Khan. Like, not everyone wants to be a victim. Now, some narcissists absolutely will enjoy playing the victim. That is absolutely true. But is everyone who is victimized by a narcissist, do they all enjoy that role? No, to me, that's a massive generalization. They do not all enjoy that role. In fact, if anything, it's been the worst experience of many of their lives. And you're going to say that they enjoy that? I mean, that's a pretty obnoxious thing to say. But granted, there can be some people that do become attached to victimhood. That's also possibly a thing, but it really just depends on the person. I would not say that's the majority of people, but I do think it's some of the people.
You said it, not
because
me.
it's an intense desire to reduce and kind of resolve yourself of any accountability. Any narcissist you've ever experienced in your life, maybe not in your case because obviously you're a celebrity, it's slightly different, but in the general case, they'll say to me, he was a narcissist. I was like, how did you meet? Well, he was married at the time, he was cheating on his wife, and then he came to me, I met him at a strip club and he was paying for all the, and I'm like, but you knew. So the day you met
you
him,
knew the type of individual you were dealing with.
So,
and that's one story where Sadia would be correct. Like if you get with a guy that's cheating on his wife, that is a different story. Because if you get with somebody that's cheating on their partner, then you can't be surprised if that person cheats on you. But let's also keep it real. That is not what's going on in every one of these circumstances. Absolutely not.
Only people with either really low self-esteem or some level of narcissism themselves can gel with that. So
Right.
you're part of the process. You're part of the program.
Well, yeah.
Because all the narcissists, they just love trying to make the victims be accountable as well. They love blaming the victims and saying, where's your accountability? Where's your responsibility? Because they just hate it if someone calls out the narcissistic person's behavior. And there's even now a big movement amongst some of these professionals now that I don't know how I feel about it. Like at first I liked it. At first I liked the nuanced perspective in a way. But some of this advocacy of like the celebrities, or excuse me, the professionals saying, no, you need to stop dehumanizing narcissists. It's like, well, what do you consider dehumanizing narcissists? Like if you call out what a narcissist behavior is that demonizing and dehumanizing to you? Because the goal here is to help the people being abused. The goal is not image management of the disorder of narcissism. And the way some of these professionals act, they act like that's the goal, the image management of the disorder of narcissism. And I just don't buy that. I don't think that's helpful. Like, because again, if someone's being abusive and someone is treating people poorly, that is not good and that should be called out. And people should not be coddling that label because, oh, it's demonizing. No. Like if someone can recognize some of these things about themselves, it's up to them to try to change it. And think about the worst kinds of people out there, like the grapists or worse, right? If you know that and you call that out, are you demonizing those kinds of people? No, that's not called demonizing. It's called accurately calling out bad behavior. And if you do those bad behaviors, that should not be acceptable. It should not be something that's like, oh, they're there. We're demonizing you. No, that's your sign to do something about it. And people should still continue to call that out.
And there is no victim narcissist, it's volunteer a narcissist. And I think that kind of idea, and I know lots of people love to hold on to that victimhood, but it doesn't benefit you in any way, shape, or form. Just learn what you did to attract and maintain that relationship with a narcissist if you are going to keep selecting them.
Yeah.
So the victim as a volunteer, I mean, that's some invalidation and some blame shifting and pretty much gaslighting right there, if you ask me. It's just an obnoxious thing to say. Like, why do you need to say that they're a volunteer? Now, as I've talked about before, like in my own personal life, I think there was things I could have done better. There was things that I overlooked. I overlooked red flags. I wasn't happy on my own. And I overlooked the disrespect because I wanted her to make me feel better about myself. And I acknowledge that's me. I acknowledge I did that. But and how you say these things matters. And I would never say to someone who's just been abused, oh, you weren't a victim. You were just a volunteer. It's like, how obnoxious and condescending is that? But I said, again, this is what narcissistic people do. They love trying to antagonize the victims. They're obsessed with trying to make them hold themselves accountable. And notice what you don't hear much here is neither one of them taking accountability for themselves that much. Neither one of them. It's all about bad talking victims. That's not a coincidence either. And that's another big thing to focus on too. What people decide to focus on says a lot. And it can be a way of telling a half truth. It can be lies of omission, but what you don't say can speak very loudly too.
And again,
I think, and if if we're utilizing this time for, some cultivation and some counseling, where I would probably need help would be in the space of like, I am that. I own who I am. You get what you get. But tapping more into the empathetic and compassion approach, I would love to not run into the, as I call them, the landmines or the hurdles of attempting to be the best version of myself. But I have this issue with pleasing and not falling victim to these terms that are thrown at me, like gaslighting, like, oh, you're a narcissist, or oh, you're making.
For him falling victim to the terms of gaslighting, talk about some Darvo there, deny, accuse, reverse victim and offender. So maybe someone's called him a gaslighter. Oh, now he's a victim of being called a gaslighter? What? Like, what the heck is going on here? It's a bizarro world. But again, to be expected amongst a diagnosed narcissist. And that's the danger of any diagnosed narcissist. Their narcissistic operating system can be controlling and is controlling everything they say and do. Everything they say and do is going through that narcissistic operating system lens. You cannot forget that. It is always true. People can get sucked into believing it's not true. People can get sucked into believing the narcissist is going to give you special knowledge if it's a content creator that no one else is going to give you. But that's their manipulation. That's their manipulation to make themselves feel powerful and superior. You're going to get this special knowledge here. And in fact, it's BS because there's plenty of survivors and plenty of other professionals that can give you that very same knowledge. They're not giving you anything special. They want you to think you're like learning something special from them, but you're absolutely not. It's not special in any way.
Making it all about you. Like no, I want to be able to, clearly, my life, my lifestyle, how I move, but how can I still be the best father? How can I still be the best partner in a relationship, knowing that I'm not gonna not be me, and especially a man in his 40s like that. I'm pretty much the way, like, I'm stuck in my ways of who I am, but I always want to be a better version of myself. So, but that's where I struggle, because I get caught up in these scenarios where, like, I'm the provider, I'm gonna make sure you're good, but then when I feel like I'm either being taken advantage of or underappreciated, then I'll shut down, or I'll.
And what does that sound like? That sounds like stonewalling. That sounds like a silent treatment. That sounds like playing the victim.
You know, I'm not rageful. I don't argue or yell, but I can definitely be passive aggressive in that sense. And that's where, you know, like, if we're going to the 3M method, and like the first one is like literally mastering myself. It's like, okay, I can take accountability and recognize the things I need to work on. And it's definitely in that space of like, I'm me, but I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to.
So what does that look like? Say if you do have conflict with your partner, or you feel like they're not grateful or anything like that, underappreciated, do you not say anything but just do what you want to do behind their back?
I try not to move behind anyone's back. I try to be an open book. I try to, you know, I definitely have issues with omission.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's like on a need to know basis. But if we're having a conflict, I try to deal with it head on. It's never about, like, because at this point in my lifestyle, I'm not hiding anything. I'm not, and I really don't have time to be running the streets and being outside, because really my main goal in life is to be the best father I can be. So, but you know, I'm not in a monogamous relationship with one individual.
And they accept that? They usually accept?
Like you said, they kind of, the people I deal with have to accept it.
They have.
Otherwise, like I said, I've had.
I mean, and here's the thing about that. I made that term up the other day, pathological fidelity avoidance. It's one thing if you're upfront and honest and you have an ENM relationship, a poly relationship, an open relationship. That's one thing. But to say, as he said it, they kind of have to, that almost implies like they don't really want to, but they're just doing it anyway. Which again, and maybe if they know that about him and they're doing it anyway, and they're not okay with it, and they know he's like this, that's not good. That's not good. But notice how he phrases it here as, oh, they kind of have to be. That's a little bit different than them being on board and okay with, yeah, I'm going to do what I do. They're okay with that. That's a different story.
Great relationships with some phenomenal women that just were like, yeah, I can't do this. And anybody that's new, or anyone that I meet now, has to really understand, like, there's definitely a pecking order and an order of operations in my daily structure, because my kids are first. Yeah. And you're gonna have to come after all of that, then I can make time, you know. And so usually it never gets past a great conversation.
And you don't try and force monogamy on yourself. You're not.
Never. I just know it's not for me.
And what is it about it that you find difficult?
It doesn't, like, inside of me, it doesn't make sense. Like, it doesn't feel natural. And I honestly, because, you know, I've been married before and was completely monogamous and faithful. And again, it was someone that I had such reverence for and was so in love with, that it was easy. I wasn't even, it was easy to be monogamous because I felt so privileged and like, wow. You know what I mean? So that it never had an issue. But even, you know, once the marriage was over, I was kind of like, oh, I wasn't really being myself. You know what I mean? Like that.
Is this more yourself, this version?
This is definitely more myself. Okay. And like, since my, you know,
and I think what he's talking like here is he was missing the narcissistic supply of cheating and getting with other women. Like, that's what he wanted. That's why it didn't feel natural to him, because narcissists, they need narcissistic supply. They don't think of it like that. They don't see it that way, but that is what's going on. Whether you listen to H.G. Tudor saying it, Sam Vaknin saying it, or one of the other professionals saying it, they all say that. They know that. And you're not going to hear much about that in the licensed professional circles. They don't talk about it like that. But I don't know. The more I talk about some of these people, I realize that there seems to be a disconnect. Like the real world of narcissism and experiencing narcissistic abuse is just much different than the textbook world of narcissism. It's just two different planets. Unless you've lived it, unless you've had a narcissistic parent or a narcissistic romantic relationship, I just have a hard time thinking they truly get it. And some of their rhetoric kind of proves to me that they have very charitable interpretations of narcissism. And it's almost like they just don't get it. Like they know what they've read, but it's like, is that really what's going on? And you talk to them in your office, but do you see them behind closed doors? Do you see them how they treat their romantic partner? Do you see them how they treat their families? Because if not, you really don't know what's going on. You really don't know. And unless you're talking to their family members as well, you just don't know, because they're a completely different person behind closed doors a lot of times. And unless you get that information, you're not getting the full story.
I've been separated since like the early teens, like 2014, 15, something, somewhere around there. And ever since then, obviously, that's even where all of the children came afterwards and stuff.
So do you think
I feel like I've been more myself then.
Okay, so does it depend on the woman that will make a man monogamous? In your case, if you met a woman of that level, because maybe now, because of the lifestyle, it's hard to attract a woman that would be as someone that you'd revere to as much, because
yeah, because that's okay. So, and then we'll go here. I'll answer that question this way, because I do believe monogamy is possible.
Yeah,
and I actually, through my spiritual walk, I believe the only way monogamy is possible and you could be successful at it is through your relationship with God.
Yeah.
And like you put God first and both of you are aligned with like, this is why we're doing this. Then, the Bible even teaches that it was like, a marriage should be exalted because it's not normal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not easy.
Like a successful marriage we should honor that and have reverence for it, because everyone can't do it.
Yeah.
And that's literally when they talk about the hierarchy of the church. It's like, God the Father, Christ, and then like just that's how the marriage order is taught. So saying all of that, if I was to meet someone that I felt I was equally yoked with, which the Bible talks about, I think, and that was the journey, and it would probably have to happen, or had happened earlier in my life, because now every woman that I meet already has expectations. They already believe they know who I am, and so I'm at a disadvantage. In my opinion, because I'm like, all right, I'm trying to get to know her for her. She believes she already knows me. And it's usually gonna be a utilitarian love experience of like, what can I do for this individual?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my experience of working with so many men, every man is capable of being faithful, every single one of them.
Yeah.
But there's only two conditions that will make him faithful: is a relationship that's not worth the risk because he's so impressed by the woman. And second, he has to have a deep down belief that if he did cheat, she'll walk away. If he believes she'll stay and the relationship is worth the risk, he will always cheat. Yeah, there's an unconscious belief she will stay regardless of my behavior. And
there could be a fair amount of truth in that for cheaters, I think.
The relationship is worth the risk. Now, as you get so successful, firstly, it's hard to meet a woman that's going to blow you away because you've probably met so many. Secondly, it's hard to meet a woman that would immediately walk away if you did do it.
Right.
So because those two conditions are harder to find as you become more successful, you're more likely to take the risk. And so it becomes difficult to have monogamy. You're hardly going to meet a woman that you're massively impressed by. You can never risk this relationship. And you're hardly going to meet a woman that definitely has a willingness to walk away if you did risk it. So it makes it harder to get that Mariah Carey style relationship again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
if you do get that relationship, men can be faithful.
And that's what and again, I'm also one of those people who just love life and love life experiences. And I'm like, I've had such amazing experiences that it's like, it's hard. I mean, I've said it many times on this couch, but it's like, it's hard for someone that's going to come and top Mariah Carey. You know what I like?
And also, it's hard for monogamy because monogamy requires monotony, and you have to
Yeah.
be monotonous as a person.
Yeah.
So people who have very monotonous lives, monogamy is an easy relationship to.
And especially for narcissists, they do not do well with boredom. They need to stimulate themselves. And that's part of the reason why they need all the narcissistic supply too, because it gives them ego functions, but they're also bored. And that's why a lot of them struggle with alcohol or drugs or gambling or pornography or infidelity because it feeds that boredom. They have a desire for this chaos. They have the desire for drama because it stimulates them. All that stuff stimulates them.
Fall into. But when your everyday life is so exhilarating,
Yeah.
to then go back to a really monotonous lifestyle of marriage is very difficult.
And I'm one of those people, like my therapist says, like I'm a machete juggler. So in that sense, where it's like I like what I get the exhilaration and the thrill from is like watching. You know, well, you don't think I can do it? Throw in another one. You know, and that's really, even at this stage of my life, is what continues to drive me. Are the challenges, are the things of like, all right, how are we gonna figure this out? How are we gonna make this? You know, I can fix it. So all of the things I've had, the normal experiences, which, you know, and that's even because I would love to tap into this because I don't want, you know, the people sitting here and watching it like, yeah, all right, your life is great, your life is amazing, you're living at a high velocity, like, and a high frequency, but the average person isn't dealing with it at this.
But can I ask, in your case, like, what made you, instead of just being with lots of women, what made you want to have children with lots of women?
I think it's two different processes, if I'm being honest. One, I think just to that point, I feel at a certain stage, and maybe this is where the narcissistic personality thing comes into play, is like I value the ability to be able to do it and do it well. I was up for the challenge, and if I'm being honest, it was I had partners that were desiring and wanted children, and even the people that seem like, man, you're such a great dad, I would love it. And I'm like, all right, well, let's do it. You know what I mean? Like,
so what is he talking about here? I mean, it makes him feel superior. It gives him a sense of narcissistic supply, and it's also, when you're a guy, you spread your seed and you can get with more and more women. It all makes you feel special, and you get admiration now from all these kids, especially when they're younger, maybe admiration from all the baby moms. So for a narcissist, if you have the financial means to do it, I think a lot of them will, because they can.
We got the finances, as long as you understand what it is, let's make it happen. And it was, again, being that provider, being that pleaser of it. It wasn't like I set out to be like, I'm about to go have a whole
provider and pleaser. And that's something I mentioned on Facebook the other day. But there's narcissists that think, oh, I need to work on my people pleasing and learn to put myself first. It's like, you're a narcissist. You already put yourself first and foremost. You, if anything, are extremely self-centered, and you need to learn to put other people first for a change. Your problem is not people-pleasing. Instead, it is extreme self-centeredness. And if anything, you need more humility, not, I need to work on my people-pleasing and put myself first. It's like, no, that's not what it is.
Bunch of children at the same time. It was like a lot of the women I was dealing with had a similar desire at the same time. And because of, you know, me being living the lifestyle and the way that I was doing it, you know, I think a lot of, if there were men who had the ability to do it the way that I was doing, they probably would do it as well. But I think a lot of times, you know, and even I probably should have been thinking about it during the time, but like financially, they're like, wait, hold on, this is going to get expensive. We're talking about 12 college tuitions. We're talking about 12, you know, like, so I think because I was like, all right, I can financially handle it. And then the fact that because of the lifestyle that I was living, where all the individuals that are in my life were moderately, you know, okay with
reasonable,
the the lifestyle that I was living, especially as it got to the place where it's like, all right, if you already know that I got 8 kids and you want the 9th, you kind of have to understand how this process is gonna work. So
but I think with the average,
and I can't get over how smitten Sadia Khan here is in the presence of higher status Nick Cannon. Now, what level of celebrity is Nick Cannon? Is he a B level celebrity? Is he a C level celebrity? I can't really say. Definitely not an A. Maybe a C plus, maybe. But either way, that's more popular than Sadia. Online, on YouTube, Sadia is a name. But if anything, she has been disgraced, if anything.
Man, when they're frivolous with who they have kids with, they really suffer, and they really do suffer. They lose access to the kids, they lose access to how to see them, how they're being raised. The children are then raised by stepfathers that could be abusive. It could be so. Unless you're of a man unless you're still the dominant figure in those children's households, frivolously having kids would be really dangerous for the average man.
Absolutely.
But you could afford to still have a say in how the kids are raised and everything, and still have access to all of them.
I mean, it's been was there some wood that I can knock on?
Oh, crazy to God.
But everything is, and I think that's, in respect to the women that I have children with, it's just a very respectful, openly communicative. Like, obviously, it's not all peaches every day. We are going to have our challenges, but the goal is let's do what's best for the children.
Oh, amazing.
And when you get to that common ground, it's
not to be forgotten, in those text messages with the man that Sadia Khan was having an affair with, she had said something along the lines of, I want you to make me pregnant. And then the guy says, okay, but I'm not going to take care of it. And then Sadia says, oh, what can go wrong? Accept everything. As if she even cares about being like, it's wild.
Never going to be issue to where like we can't get to the right space. Even once you remove ego, once you remove emotion, all right, we'll have that moment. Let's come back to the table and like, all right, well, this is probably what we should do, or this is what we can afford to do, or this is the process. So that at this point now, granted, a lot of my children are still extremely young, and like I said, I do find myself like I'm definitely it's going to be some of those times where oh, I missed this ballet recital because this person had a game, or I couldn't drop this one off at school because I had to drop this one off at school. So I know I'm going to deal with that. And I know it's going to be less about my relationships with the women and more about the relationships with my children as they get older. And they're going to present to me that, Dad, I wish you were there for this, or Dad, I wanted more of this experience because I witnessed my friend's household was like this and mine wasn't. So I know there's going to be, some difficult conversations in the future. But
usually children, how they handle that is how it's been filtered through by the mum.
Right.
If the mum is constantly reminding them, Dad is just working, he's doing the best he can, the children tend to have really high self-esteem as they grow older. They don't worry. But when the woman poisons them in any way, shape or form, they carry that forever, literally forever. So the selection of the woman is quite important.
That's a fair point, actually, by Sadia. I've seen that go both ways. Like if a woman is supportive of a man, and the man deserves it, of course, too, and that does rub off on the children, and that's how they see their father. But if there's a mother out there bad talking the dad all the time, talking about what a piece of crap he is, that also shapes the children as well. So I think even the best way to go with it is, even if the husband is a piece of crap, to not be feeding that to the kids as well, because now you're kind of poisoning their thought process. And the opposite is true if it's like a man talking bad about the woman. Like that's true as well, right? So if a guy is saying that to his son about women, that son is going to think that way about women. Or if he says that to his daughter, and then the daughter is going to think certain things. So how people talk to their kids absolutely is a big thing.
They filter it quite well. The women, they tend to filter it down to the kids quite well.
So far, so good.
All praise be to God. You got lucky.
And
this is not representation of like the real world, but you got very lucky so far.
Well, I think too, because, and that goes back to the question that you asked me, is probably one of the reasons why I was so willing to live the lifestyle that I am. One, because I've lived multiple other lifestyles, and I was like, I can get this one right. And because there's so many other decisions I could have made instead of saying, hey, I'm gonna have 6 baby mamas and 12 kids.
Yeah.
And even I could have still been the wild boy out there doing all of it. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
And it could have been, I could have also made some decisions to where I could have been in a marriage and cheating and all of those. But I chose to be like, I'm going to live an open book. I'm going to be as honest as I possibly can with everyone. And I'm going to attempt to be the best father I can be to all of my
You
children.
live like Muslim men do. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's what I'm telling Nick. Because I honestly, look, I'm Muslim, and I, always grew up thinking, why would God allow men to have up to 4 wives? That's crazy. Like, why is that allowed? And I couldn't understand it. And the other thing that's in Islam is like, men usually keep the kids. They usually keep the kids even after divorce. If their child can go to the mother, but if there's a stepfather, it goes back to the biological father. And I was like, that's crazy. So I would have to give my kid back if I got remarried. That's crazy. And I used to think that as a child. As I became a therapist, it all made sense.
Really?
Even though I wouldn't sign up to it at this, and the night is young, you never know. But right now, I wouldn't sign up to it. I can totally understand the logic, because to make those rules as a religion, it means that the Creator really understood the nature of a man. The nature of a man is that there are definitely men that can be monogamous. There's some men that are just loyal to their wives. Yeah, they're absolutely loyal they're committed to the marriage. They don't care what they go through, ups and downs.
And it's also true that I think some men just couldn't cheat outside of an escort scenario. So that kind of is maybe the only thing that stops some of them.
They're going to be loyal. There's other men that are loyal to the woman they fell in love with. And if she stays exactly that woman, they can be loyal. But if she changes or kids get in the way and they no longer have that connection, they still need that same kind of love or that same kind of attention. Those men are going to stray. Whether we like it or not, they're going to stray. So I think the idea of placing it in the religious confines means that if God didn't give that clause, every man's going to hell. So you might as well just put it in there so that he can save himself. So now I completely...
And because men probably were the ones that wrote those laws.
So then I completely... And even as I'm working with so many clients, one thing I know is just that as women, we can't match a man's sex drive for the rest of our lives. We physically can't do it.
Right.
No matter how promiscuous she is, even the sluttiest, promiscuous woman, after the first couple of years or after the first child, she goes back to not letting you touch her as well. She goes back to putting her socks on.
And I don't even know about that, because as a teenager, I mean, that's when my sex drive was the highest, teenager into 20s. And I've heard for a lot of women, the 30s is their highest sex drive time. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I think about that. 30s into 40s for some women. But again, it really just depends. It depends on the variables.
Go straight to bed.
Yeah.
So it's just something that we're almost not designed to keep up with each other for the rest of our lives.
Right.
And even though I wouldn't sign up to it, I completely have no judgment to those that do, because I meet so many mistresses that are like, I know he's married and we're going to stay married forever. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with just seeing him on the weekends. We have our intimate, and then he goes, I prefer this.
Yeah.
So there is a market for this world. And if it wasn't, which is why it made me a little bit more aligned with my faith, because I kind of get it now. I do. Yeah, I get where it's coming from.
Coming from, y'all heard it.
It's not do as I say, not as I do. No, but it's just a reality, because what I do find is I do see lots of monogamous men in America, and they're loyal to their wife and they would never cheat, but they spend endless hours on OnlyFans, endless hours watching pornography, going to escorts on the side, doing whatever they could, because they don't get access to, some of their wives haven't slept with them in 10 years, 5, 10. And the men that accept it and stay totally loyal, even though you're not sleeping with him, you don't want that man. He usually lacks masculinity anyway. He's that guy with low testosterone, will just accept that you never touched him in 8 years, will moan about it and be mad about it, but won't actually do anything and will still stay with you. As loyal, as monogamous as he is, you don't want him. Because if you did, you'd touch him. So
and that's an interesting scenario there too. Like if a woman isn't doing that and like the man's just there, what would I say to that man? I mean, and clearly in this scenario, he's going on OnlyFans or watching pornography online. And it's like, is that really the best way to handle that? Like, because if the woman truly doesn't want you anymore, it's like, what are you even doing there at that point? And provided there's not something like he's just doing wrong, that's like not providing emotional safety or something. But generally, there's also probably a lack of positive masculine containment in that situation too, where if that woman felt loved, she would probably still want to, I would say, outside of extenuating circumstances with health, etc. She would probably want to. And the only kinds of men I think that would tolerate that are the ones that would be not the best versions of themselves at that point. And again, outside of health issues here.
that truly, truly high testosterone man that is more honest in what he wants in a life, those are the men that women actually want. And because men are being programmed to think that women want one type of man, which they actually don't respect, they're losing their masculinity. I'm not saying women want cheaters.
Yeah.
No, but that's definitely not what we want. But we want a man that if he's not getting his needs met, he lets you know, I'm out.
Yeah.
If my needs are not met and your needs are not met, we both bow out. But this passive kind of man that will...
And that's a fair point by Sadia. I don't disagree with that. I think if you're both not happy and you're not getting your needs met, there needs to be a conversation there. But as she's about to say, I think she's going to talk about passive guys, and passive guys will be the more people-pleasing guys. They're the guys that are unhappy, but they don't say anything about it. They just think, oh, I'll just keep on trying to be a good guy and it'll change. But then maybe they build resentment instead. They build resentment. They become bitter. They'll bad talk the wife behind her back. And those are the things that's like a weak man. A weak man does those things.
Just accept his wife never touched him. He still stays loyal and he's just so monogamous. Actually, we lose respect for him.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact, and this is obviously a great place to pause.
And that's a fair point, though. I mean, because if a man's going to be weak, a woman is going to lose respect for him. And rightfully so, honestly, because that man is showing he doesn't respect himself. And if a man doesn't respect himself, why is a woman going to respect the man? That's where it starts with the man in that case. And Sadia did say some of that, and I don't completely disagree with that.
Was our first session because I feel like there was so much acceptance, accountability, and really, if we're going to your 3M method, is mastering self.
Yeah.
But in our next session, I think it's with mastering women. So, and I think that's why we paused here, because one thing that you were just saying, which I found interesting, and then I can add what I've attempted to practice in this space when dealing with women is, if you remove the sex, if you remove the intimacy, does that strengthen the bond with your partner, or does that weaken it? To what you were just saying, because if your relationship is solely based on the physical, at some point, I feel like it's gonna dwindle away because of even what we just said. So in our next session, I would love to understand, and I'll even share more what I mean when I say, like, all right, what if, I've kind of placed that on the table, not only of like, all right, well, what else are you bringing to the table besides sex and intimacy? And what else are you getting from me besides sex and intimacy? And then once we understand that, then we can weigh our pros and cons of this relationship.
And like your desire to be with different women, is that because you desired new novel sex, or is it because you desire different women?
That is a great question, and we will talk about it on the next Couch for Culture, because this one has been so amazing. So
thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure the comments are going crazy.
They're gonna hate me.
I'm not gonna hate you. If anything, you have been saying everything. They gonna think I paid you to come here and regurgitate my philosophy. But this has been an amazing conversation. I've been counseled, and hopefully.
All right. Well, that's enough of that. So, everybody, what did you think of all that? Let's see what some of the comments had to say. Old Bear, welcome. I'm glad you found me. This is Gabriel, Old Bear, George. Got zero masculinity. Some men can be getting it at home and still cheat. Yes, it's very true. Marriages is for making and raising children and stability. Where I came from, sexual attraction can wane, but the family stays together. Yeah, that's often what happens as well. The sexual part needs nurturing in a marriage. If you let it slide, it'll leave. Yes, absolutely. You got to continue dating your wife, dating your husband. He's in which of his baby mama's households? That's a good question, George. I don't know. I think he's got 12 kids. They want fun without restrictions, so they pretend family and pretend relationship. Yeah. I mean, narcissists in particular, right? They want narcissistic supply. They want to relieve their chronic sense of emptiness and boredom, and they just want to have fun. Yes, he does, George. Yes, he does. Narcissists don't self-sacrifice for the sake of the family. Yes. So, well, I guess it would depend, because there can be some versions of sacrifice that can make them look good and give them narcissistic supply, and it's good for their image. They might do that. But what would really be the test is the things that they can't get supply from. What isn't going to help their image, but would also help the family. That's the true test. Let's see here. He's not raising any kids. I'm raising his kids then too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what his day-to-day looks like, right? In the celebrity world, it's just a different ball game. It's a different world. They're not playing by the same rules that many people are playing. And so like a father that is a good father in Hollywood land, it's like you're home like twice a week. Oh, you're a great dad. You're there twice a week. But as opposed to like other people, like you're there every night. So it's just different rules that they play by. Ellie says, without money, his image would be in the gutter. Yes, money has a way of doing that, doesn't it? Money has a way of painting lipstick on a pig where things, if not for the money and status, it would be hideous. But the money makes it seem not quite as hideous sometimes. I've noticed that too. I mean, no, he's got status. I mean, women are going to want the status and the wealth that comes with that. Like, and he's not like a bad looking person. So he checks some of the boxes that a lot of women are going to want. And that's something that I'm going to talk about actually with Marcella from Beyond the Bruise. So we always talk about how the trauma bond is a thing. Narcissists are going to love bomb and do whatever. But there is another component. Sometimes the women just find the dudes hot as well. And that contributes. There's an element to that just doesn't get talked about, because I think for some people it's too close to victim blaming. But I think it's absolutely a component. Many of my female clients, they'll tell me that all the time. Like, yeah, this guy, I just feel it for him. And other guys that I should like, I just don't. And there's multiple things going on there, but one of them is they just think the bad boy's hot. It's only about his money. Agreed. Sex is a tool to get more money. Sex is a tool from the women or from him? That's always possible. I've seen all of the things with that, right? Sometimes they're great in bed, sometimes they're not. And then some people think, oh, all narcissists are gay. But it really just depends. You can't paint with the broad brush completely. I think some are gay, some are not. Some are bi, some are not. Yeah, and that's a component of it too, Rhodes, right? Or I should call you maybe Ellie. But it is what it is. Not every time, but it's a big component of it that I think plays a part, and a lot of people just don't want to talk about it. I don't think that's what's getting him it though, Ellie. I think like those women, I think they just want him. They want him because he's a mini celebrity. He's got money, he's got some status, and it kind of gives them some excitement. And they just do. And yes, absolutely, sex can be used for control. Sex can be weaponized. Sex can be withheld. Absolutely. Definitely a thing. And narcissists are known for doing that. And if you listen to Sam Vaknin, he would say narcissists are really autoerotic, meaning they're not really getting with other people. They just kind of masturbate using other people. That's what Sam Vaknin would say. Yeah, Rhodes, for sure. A lot of people think that. It's just a fact of life, right? No, I'll put it to you this way. Even with the very small level of fame that I have, people absolutely treat me differently just with the small level of fame I have. Let alone if you're a Nick Cannon, let alone if you're anyone even bigger than him. Like, look at Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, he walks into a room, every head turns, men and women alike. And most women, as he shows, would want him, probably regardless of age. So it's just a thing. It's a thing. It's part of human nature. It's always been a thing. I don't think there's necessarily something wrong with it. It just kind of is what it is. It's probably fun in the sack. It's money for fun. Money for nothing, tricks for free, Ellie? Is that what you're saying? With the dire straits. Nick. Well, Nick just has status and money. But wasn't it interesting to see, and he's not a bad looking person, wasn't it interesting to see how smitten Sadia Khan was with him? Holy mackerel. She was loving being in the presence of another special person just like her. And it was rubbing off on her. Oh, this is so great. I'm going to be so bubbly with Nick Cannon. It is what it is, but they have to lie about it. Well, they think they do, but I don't necessarily think they do, really. Like, if you're very honest, if you're Nick Cannon, say like, hey, this is how it is. I'll get with you and be with you, but I'm also going to get with other people. Are you okay with that? And if the woman signs on to that, then the woman signs on. I mean, and then anything that happens in that department of it is on her at that point. Oh, well, thank you. I mean, what I used to do is I used to coach men. I used to coach more men back in the day, but I haven't done that as much recently. But, I still do, of course, but I used to like coach men with dating stuff because that's what was one of my passions before I started talking more about the narcissism topic. I liked it. But that's pretty much all I had here for today. Announcements. Dr. Keith Campbell, I'm speaking to on Monday. I'm reading his book, like I said, and there's some interesting stuff in that book. And I'm reading it, I'm thinking to myself, holy mackerel, if I were to share some of this stuff on my platforms, I would get a lot of backlash, I think. People would be mad. And you'll see what I'm talking about when that interview gets released. I'm sure Mariah didn't know this about Nick way back then, about Mariah and Eminem. Did you know Mariah Carey's Obsessed song is about Eminem? It's a diss about Eminem. It is just a transaction for sex as love addicts. Oh yeah, that's a different thing for sure. That's just using someone for narcissistic supply. George says, I'm sure Mariah wasn't looking for a cheater. Yeah, probably not. I mean, she's a high status woman. She doesn't need a cheater, right? She wouldn't need to settle for that. Like a woman that doesn't have that kind of status might be tempted to, but Mariah doesn't really need to. She can do more of what she wants. A lot of guys out there probably die to be with old school Mariah Carey. I don't even know how old she is now, but 40s? Is she 40s now? I don't even know. She didn't know about his cheating ways back in the day. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. He wasn't out. He wasn't out of the cheating closet like he is now. Now he's known for this. Now he's known for the person that fathers all sorts of children with several baby mamas. That's what he's known for. And again, all of his kids, that gives him a sense of supply right there. And that he mentioned it in there, that admiration, getting that attention for being a great father. That's narcissistic supply. That's what that is. Yep, that's what status and money will do for people. It shows their true self. It shows you who they really are. So give a man money and a lot of his mask will drop. Give a man money and you'll see what he would rather do with his time. And the same goes for women. My dad was a sex and love addict, narc. See, that's probably, if you've had romantic relationships with them as you've had, Ellie, that's probably a big reason why, right? Because home wasn't a safe place for you. And then people that felt like home were not necessarily good for you. That's a very common thing. I mean, I can relate to that myself for different reasons. And it's uncanny, though. It's uncanny how people that can have a narcissistic parent like that, there is something that feels so familiar about a narcissistic romantic relationship before you become aware. It's absolutely a thing. Yep, I believe it. So that's why they say if home wasn't a safe place for you, be very careful with people who feel like home. Because especially if home was hell, yeah, watch out for that. No bueno, as they will say. But all right, everybody. I think Monday into the afternoon or Tuesday, I'll be uploading that interview with Dr. Keith Campbell. That one is one to watch out for. It's going to be interesting. I got some other special announcements coming up here too. Big news in the space. I'm going to go over that. And I'm also trying to branch out to some more people outside of the narcissism space and see where that takes me. I think I mentioned I'm going to be on Mark Vicente's podcast at some point in November. That's something to watch out for too. And what else? I've been actually reaching out to some of the people that some of you told me to reach out to. So the little shaman I've reached out to, Nick Bassett, I'm going to reach out to. He's someone I used to watch years ago. I completely forgot about him until somebody mentioned him in the comments. You got it, Ellie. But I, George, Ellie, Gabriel, Rhodes, everyone else who was here, it's always a pleasure. Until next time, hopefully you enjoyed the when two narcissists walk into a bar stream. And hopefully you were able to learn some stuff from that. You got it, Ellie. Good night, George.